Hey there, vinyl community. So, Saturday, early evening, and I was thinking about going out, and I heard this morning that I guess Damo Suzuki passed away this morning, and just thought, it's really not my place to pay tribute. I certainly am not in a position to be able to do that, but I thought somebody should, um, just because Can, and especially Damo, who was always my favorite vocalist with Can, um, was such a big part of kind of my awakening. How can I put it? Kind of my branching away from, before finding Can and Noi and kind of krautrock. I always thought kind of, uh, you know, alternative listening, if that's the way you want to put it, meant uh, bands like, the punk bands and the Damned and stuff like that, garage bands and stuff that I loved. Those were like alternatives because everyone else I knew was listening to, I don't know, Steely Dan or whatever. And as I ventured more into that, I eventually started to read more and more about krautrock, and in particular Can, who I was often frightened away from getting into when I would talk to friends that I had and stuff from kind of the old neighborhood, and they would tell me, "Oh, that music is just it's just a bunch of noise. You don't want to hear it." And I admit that it put me off from it for a short period of time. Although my curiosity always got the better of me, and I can remember the first time I actually ever heard a Can record, which was this album. I think I heard the CD though, and I really liked it. And I didn't find it difficult or hard to listen to at all. Um, in fact, I found it fascinating, and so I started to delve into the catalog, mainly on CD format, um, and finding out the Malcolm Mooney albums and the Damo records, and then later when Can didn't have a vocalist, and this stuff really made my musical taste turn in a blatantly kind of avant-garde position, where I was actively seeking out things that were really different than what everyone else I knew was listening to. Growing up, most of my friends listened to AC/DC, and to be honest, and there's nothing wrong with this, most of them are still listening to that today. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have some AC/DC records, and there are times when I love putting them on and just, yeah, especially the Bon Scott years. It's not that I have some sort of prejudice against that. I'm just talking about my own personal musical evolution, and so I started to actively move in a different direction. And it's not always easy, especially I don't know how it is in other parts of the country or other parts of the world, but I grew up in suburban Detroit, and growing up, everyone was into Kiss and Black Sabbath and AC/DC, and even getting into bands like the Damned, for instance. People kind of That was odd. What are you listening to? Not to mention if you were listening to later when, Stereo Lab and stuff like that, which was, really strange. House music, techno music, you know. So you had to be a little bit of an independent thinker to go off in those directions because most of people I grew up with, um, to this day, that stuff doesn't mean anything to them. And it just is, they're still listening to, I can go over people's houses that I grew up with, and I can guarantee you that their record shelves are filled with the same bands that they were listening to when they were 15 and 16 years old. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not trying to be critical of it. That's their musical journey, and maybe at some point they decided that was enough for them, and they stayed there. And for me, it meant going out further. Um, Eventually, as I explored Can, I remember coming along with this album, which you may not recognize. This is Soundtracks, Can Soundtracks. The back cover's the same. But in the U.S., this is how this album originally came out. Same track listing, but yeah, this is a kind of a collection of songs that were used in film soundtracks. Some of these are with Malcolm, and some of these are with Damo. But it's a great record. In fact, it's one of my favorite Can releases, just because there's a lot of diversity on it. It does have a cinematic aspect to it. And when I started to get into Can, finding these U.S. editions was a nice alternative. Although I wish I had, back then you could still pick up the German editions of these for relatively easy prices. I wish I had just done that. But these were still around, so just whenever I saw them in the store, I grabbed one and traded up for it. And it would come around every now and then, and the Can catalog just kind of, opened up to me. And again, this is a U.S. press. A lot of people consider this their masterpiece. A lot of people consider the next record that was their masterpiece. But Can took us on a real musical exploration and opened up a whole world of challenging avant-garde sounds that started a whole new, I don't want to say, for me personally, adult adventure into music. And that's, again, not to, it just means that I was more of an adult by the time I started to discover those records. And I don't know if I would have been ready for them earlier. So Damo was a big part of that. And his vocals, which were completely unique and fit Can's music so, perfectly. They were part of the mix. They weren't up front like we think of in into rock music, where the vocal is way up front and riding the wave of some big riff or whatever. Very, very different. And he used his vocal as an instrument. It's just part of the backdrop. Listening to Future Days right now, which is a great, unique, it's a good place to start if you want to get into Can. Amazing record. And so I once had, I used to do a little bit of writing for online publication, and I once was offered the chance to to interview Damo, and I kind of turned it down. Foolish of me, in retrospect, but I had heard he was rather, he wouldn't, he in more recent years, he wouldn't talk about Can. Although he did sometimes in interviews, he would, you couldn't go into those questions with him. From what I understand, if he opened up about it during the course of talking about his more recent music, but that's what he was focused on, and that's what he wanted to talk about. I've have a couple people I know who have seen him live, and he was a touring act until not that long ago. I think maybe pre-COVID. I don't know that he's toured a lot since COVID. From what I understand, he lived in Cologne, Germany, and where he continued to live most of his life, and could be seen from time to time, walking around the public squares if you knew who he was, and people would sometimes talk to him, and he had cool stories like that. And I really wish I had decided to talk to him, but there were a lot of factors as to why that didn't work out. But I wish I had, and it would have been a neat thing to have been able to had that chance to speak, one-on-one to the man. So I just thought I would mention it. Can was a big part of my evolution, and an exciting time when I was discovering those Can albums. I felt like so much was like the earth split in two, and I was finding a whole new language of music to explore, one that was completely different than the avenues that I had been on before, and I discovered ways of listening to music that helped me later understand, free jazz and even go deeper. And so Damo was a big part of that. So we lost the man, and just wanted to say a few words about him. I do have one. I wanted to show you. This is the album that Can made. So Damo left, and Can continued on afterwards. And this was the album that they did after he left. And this is a great record, and not to be missed. I used to have all the Can on, I had remasters for a bunch of these, but I went on a bit of a last year, I went on a kind of anti-remaster kick, and I gathered up a whole bunch of my remasters that I had, and ended up selling them off, and going ahead and trying to pursue originals, even if they were U.S. originals. So anyway, wanted to keep this kind of short. I'm no expert in Can, and I'm no expert in their vocalists, but we should somebody should say something in tribute to the man, and who was a big part of my exploration into music. And anyway, play your favorite Can songs maybe tonight and tomorrow on Sunday, and do your best to remember him. So thanks for watching.